So first of all, it's wonderful, the introduction when you say the wisdom of the ages, of the aged. So that's what you said, wasn't it? Wisdom of the aged? And the unity, and first of all, the meaning of my name. Teacher's name meant T. Ajahn Brahm stands for B for Buddhist, R for Roman Catholic, A for Anglican, H for Hindu, M for Muslim. Please don't chuck me out because I couldn't find a T in there for theosophical. But it is a wonderful thing to find that commonness between all religions, all spirituality. No one can own the truth more than they can own the air, which we breathe. It's free for all. And also that one of the sayings which I love to keep preaching is to never allow your learning to stand in the way of truth. Because too often, what's said in the books, sometimes we forget what the real meaning is. I'm going totally off subject. I'm totally out of control. So, some years ago, there was an incident which was in the newspapers all over the world when some US Marines in Guantanamo Bay were accused of taking a copy of the Islamic holy book, the Quran, and flushing it down the toilet. I think you all remember that incident. And I was in Australia, and one of the journalists of the Australian newspaper gave me a call. His article was going to be on asking the same question to all the religious leaders he could find in Australia. It had already been through the Anglican Archbishop in Sydney and the Catholic Archbishop and also the head rabbi. And now he came to me and said, I've asked all these people the same question. What would you do, Ajahn Brahm, as a Buddhist leader, if someone took a Buddhist holy text and flushed it down your toilet? And without any hesitation, I replied, Sir, if somebody took a Buddhist holy book and flushed it down my toilet, I would call the plumber. I need to use that. I just like you, the journalist laugh. That's the best answer. Can I print that? Yeah, sure. But starting off with the practicalities of spirituality, then I took it further to give it some oomph and some deeper meaning. And I said to him, you can flush as many holy books down my toilet as you want. And you can blow up as many Buddha statues. You can burn down the temples and machine gun the monks and nuns. But I will never allow you to flush the Buddhist principles down the toilet. I won't allow you to destroy forgiveness and compassion and harmony and peace and truth. And that's where I made the distinction between the container and the contents. What does that book mean? You look inside and have mercy, forgive, make peace. What's a Buddha statue there for? It's not to be the cause of violence and war. It's there to promote peace and happiness. I don't know if you know this story, but one of our monks, fellow monks, he went to visit UK, and if he was Australian, and if you go to visit, UK, one of the must-do things is to go and visit old castles. You don't have old castles here in the US, nor in Australia. These are like thousands of years old, some of these old monuments. And unfortunately, the local castle was closed for the day. So the host thought, well, we can't take you to the castle, but very close by was the country home of the wartime Prime Minister of England, which was Winston Churchill. And so he took him into this home called Chartwell. And as soon as they went into the entrance, on the wall was a huge picture painting of the Buddha, done by Winston Churchill. And he said, why did he paint a Buddha? And he said, the curator said, that's a painting of the Buddha statue which was by the bedside of Winston Churchill throughout the Second World War. It got missed or destroyed somewhere afterwards. But he had that right next to him, even though he wasn't a Buddhist, as a symbol of peace, of hope, during the darkest days of that war. And it's interesting that he had that there. Not to be worship a Buddha, but to be able to feel what that statue meant, the contents rather than the container. And what do the books say? Too many people hit each other over the head with the books instead of actually reading them and just learning. The container is not the contents. So you can destroy as many containers as you like, but not the contents. That's what we preserve. And you find whatever religion or whatever path, when you dispense with the containers and look at the contents, there's an amazing amount of harmony. Recently, in the monastery which we founded years and years ago, we had a burglary. There was a gentleman who came in the afternoon and he stole, we assume it was a he, stole our generator, chainsaws and expensive drills. He stole it. And many of our people would say, that's really bad karma, stealing from holy people. And I told him, hang on a minute, you can steal the equipment, but don't let anyone steal your happiness and peace. So we keep that. And anyway, once we told our office staff, we found out it was all insured. And with the insurance payout, we managed to get a much better new generator, state-of-the-art chainsaws, and all with a little profit at the end. It was such an amazing deal. I'm still trying to find that burglar to invite him back. So, no need to get upset and angry, because then you're destroying the contents. Containers aren't really important. The contents are. So, back on subject, mindfulness. Now, too many people we're already mindful. Everyone is mindful of something. I do a lot of traveling. You see all these young people so mindful of their mobile device. They're so mobile of the mobile device. They're so aware of it. And they're so concentrated as well. So absorbed. That's why they're the most dangerous person in an airport. You've got to keep avoiding them all the time. They're not looking where they're going. They're just looking at their mobile. And so, everyone is mindful. But the problem is, often we're mindful of the wrong things. So, as John would remember, we would never use mindfulness as a word by itself, in the tradition which we grew up with. It was always satipanya. Mindfulness and wisdom. So not just aware, but we know the responsibilities and the consequences of that awareness. Once, there was a very, very wealthy person in Chicago who came to listen to a talk in the TS from this Australian monk. I'll make up these stories as I go along. And because she was really wealthy, she had a guard at the door of the gate of her house. And she told that guard, be mindful. There are lots of thieves and burglars, and there's lots of wealth in my house. So I want you to be mindful tonight while I go and listen to the talk. Yes, ma'am, the guard said. And when they returned, they found the house had been ransacked. burglars had stolen everything. And she told the guard, I thought I told you to be mindful. Yes, ma'am, I wasn't. What do you mean you were mindful? We've been robbed. Madam, I saw the burglar going in, and I was very mindful. Burglar going in, burglar going in, burglar going in. I noticed them taking sacks of cash and all your diamonds out. I noted cash going out, cash going out. I saw them backing in their truck again, truck coming in. I saw your safe going out, safe going out, safe going out. I was mindful all the time, ma'am. That is mindfulness with stupidity. If you're aware, it does have consequences. So it's not mindfulness just alone. Mindfulness is understanding the right things and then learning how to do something about it. And what we usually do about it is learning how to be kind. So, a nice little explanation of a great way of understanding mindfulness and the importance of kindness is a story which has nothing to do with Buddhism, because I read this, but actually just describes spirituality. This came from a book of short stories which were written by Leo Tolstoy, which I read as a student many years ago. And it was a book of short stories published in Russia, and Chekhov did a short story there as well in this volume. It was there to raise funds for the Jewish community in Russia, who were really being discriminated against. And so I picked up that book, and in that book I read this story of the Emperor's 3 questions. And it's apt in our modern age, because the story was of an emperor who was fed up with religions and all spirituality, because they were always arguing, who was the best? I'm right, you're wrong. And could never get any harmony there. So he thought he'd make up his own religion. Just give the current the current president a chance, and maybe he'll try and do something about religion. I can't resist, because I know there's Trump supporters and non-Trump. This is not political Donald Trump jokes. Did you hear that Donald Trump, there was an assassination attempt? Someone pulled out a gun, and it's in a big meeting, and his security shouted out, "Donald, duck!" And the assassin burst out laughing. That's how they arrested him. If you had enough of my stupid jokes, leave now. There's more coming. There's a warning. So anyway, this emperor decided to make his own religion. So he did a lot of inquiry, a lot of discussion. He found out all you really need is the answer to 3 basic questions. And this became the Emperor's 3 questions, which would get some depth into his understanding and also be practical. He could actually make use of in running an empire. So the 3 questions became, when is the most important time? Who is the most important person? And what is the most important thing to do? And the whole story was how he learned this from the experiences of life. But I won't go through how he found out the answers. But when I read this, it did turn my life around. When is the most important time? That's the easy one. Now, sometimes people ask me as a meditation teacher, when's the best time to meditate? When's the worst time to meditate? The best time to meditate is now, the worst time is later. So now's the only time you ever have. And for anyone who is anxious, afraid about your future, when is the only time you can do anything about your future? Where's your future being made? So if you care about your future, you better care about this present moment, the place you can do something about it. instead of sending your mind out into the future. People are afraid that something will go wrong. Whatever you expect is going to happen, whatever you're afraid of is going to happen, it's usually something much worse. No, I'm just being negative. It doesn't happen at all. All that worry for nothing. This is personal experience. When I was about 7 or 8, my mummy told me that I couldn't go to school the following morning because I had a dental appointment. And in those days, 1958 or something, you should see the needles they injected you with. They were blood and big syringes, not like these very namby-pamby cream puff syringes they have these days and needles. And the drills, you know the old hand drills? Well, they're not quite, I'm exaggerating, but they're not far off. And for a little kid, that was really scary, that hurt. And so I was trying everything to get out of going to the dentist the next day. Throwing tantrums, screaming, crying. Those who've had kids, you know what I'm talking about. I remember also this guy, he was a visually challenged, a blind guy, and he told me that he had a Labrador dog, but it was so difficult to take his dog, the guide dog, into the vet. The dog would take him everywhere else, but when he told the dog to take him to the vet, would always go past the door, never go in. Because the guide dog didn't want to go into the vet. But anyway, they had to go to the dentist. So that night, I 6 or 7-year-old, I was just really, really crying and didn't sleep well, really afraid of going, no, the vet. They didn't take me. My mother never took me to the vet. It was to the dentist, sorry. So took me to the dentist. And I figured out, I woke up early, so how can I get out of this? So I tried the best I possibly could of psychology. Never underestimate your kids. They're much wiser than you ever think. Because my psychology, I got up and Mummy said, "You got to go to the dentist." And I said, "You don't love me, do you?" A mum would never do this to their child. It didn't work. So I remember being dragged to the dentist, really afraid, kicking and screaming. And when we got to the dentist surgery, only then we found out my appointment had been cancelled. All of that suffering, and it never happened. And I learned from that. It's a great experience. What you're afraid of doesn't happen. So anyway, now's the most important time. Who's the most important person? If you agree with that you're the most important person, put your hand up. Great, you're all wrong. I love doing stuff like that. If I ask you a question, just keep silent. There's always trick questions. So no, that was the obvious one. Me. Is it God? Is it Jesus? Is it the Buddha? No. The most important person in the world right now is the person right in front of you. You are now the most important person in the world to me. But not now. Now Jhanas. The one right in front of you is the most important person in the world. Exactly, yeah. So what that means, that just opened up so many doors to me of how to communicate and be mindful. Because I noticed, I read this when I was a student, sometimes at the end of a lecture you had a question for the professor. You went up and he wasn't listening. He was trying to get rid of like a small, long-haired student to go into something more important. I was being rejected. I wasn't being listened to. Even though you were very small, you were important. So if you want to have a very happy relationship with the people you love, when they're in front of you, don't say, "I'll talk to you later, darling." No, they're important. Give them importance. The one right in front of you is the most important person in the world, whoever they happen to be. And There's always a time where we spend most of our life by ourselves. Every night I go to sleep alone, but I've got in the habit of always saying, "Good night, me, have a great sleep." I actually do that. And in the morning, here I am again, have a wonderful day, me. Because it goes on to the next part of the questions. The one right in front of you is the most important person in the world. That's often you, because you're with you. And what's the most important thing to do? It was to care. Now, there's a story there. I remember Siri and Nirangela Galhanagi. Their son was called Sumeta. You know, we saw him in very early years when he grew up in the temple in Perth, and went through high school, smart enough to go to medical school, became a doctor, and he came to see me. He'd already left at this time. He came to see me because he'd had this tragedy in his hospital, and he wanted to resign. He said, "I can't do this job any longer." Because what happened, after all that investment of years of study and training, he wanted to give it away. And the reason was that one of his patients, about 23, 24-year-old woman, had unexpectedly died. He wasn't to blame. No one is, but we tend to blame ourselves for these things. And the worst of all, being the doctor of this patient, he was the one who had to tell the husband that unexpectedly the woman he'd committed to in this world, the one he still was in the blossoming of new love, so attached to, was no longer there. And worse, that his two children had no mom. And that was so tragic. It hurt him just as deep as you possibly can imagine. He said, "I can't do this ever again. It's too painful." And that's where I told him, "You've misunderstood the purpose of being a doctor. If you think that curing is your main purpose, you are going to fail many times in your career, and also you're going to have so much feeling of guilt and failure because you can't always cure. But the purpose of being a doctor, a nurse, a psychologist, or anyone in the helping professions is not to cure, it is to care. Because as a doctor, you never need to fail if your main purpose is to care. You can always care for people. And if the person does die, they've died being cared for. And the family appreciate that. And it changes the whole ball game. They've been cared for. That is always possible. Curing is not always possible. And I think in modern medicines, sometimes we make curing the priority. We forget the main purpose is to care. And what happened? He understood it straight away, went back to hospital the next day, and as is a great guy, still comes along. He said, "Yeah, I always remember that. I teach that to other people." And I said to him, "You probably cured many more people when you made caring the first priority." The caring is very powerful. It helps and works. So, all of those who have got in relationships, who are trying to cure your husbands, forget about it. Care for them, and then they change. You try and cure them, and it doesn't work. Because caring is the most important thing to do. That's where people respond. So, the reason I say that, that's mindfulness and kindness. It's wisdom. The mindfulness is the one right in front of you, the most important person in the world. Now's the only time you have. What to do? Care for them. And I turn that into a whole meditation path. Sometimes people say, "Can you meditate when, say, you're sick, in a hospital, in pain, or when you've just lost someone you've really loved and you're in grief?" Of course you can. Can you be in this moment? Can you make this experience the most important thing in the world for you? The one which you're with, instead of trying to get rid of it, which is what most people do. They diminish it, demean it, don't see its importance, and then care for it. Care for it. It's part of life. And what do I mean by caring for it? If, on the way back to your homes this evening after this talk, if you are walking down the sidewalk and you find that you tread in the dog shit. Now, the reason I say the word shit is because I am a very good Buddhist monk. The Buddha actually said, and now John knows this, that it's in the monk's discipline of Vinaya, and it's also in the Aranavibhanga Sutta. I can get it out, and if you find a copy, and show it to you. He said, monks, whenever you go teaching in different places, you must always use the local language. This is the US. So I'm using the local language. So, if you tread in the dog shit, what should you do? Don't scrape it off your shoes. You must always take it back home with you. And only scrape it off when it's in your garden under the apple tree. Because if you don't waste it, you scrape it off under your apple tree, you will find 1 year later your apples will be sweeter and juicier than ever before. But you have to remember that when you bite into that apple and it's so sweet and juicy, the juice runs down your cheek, please remember what you are really eating. You're eating dog shit. That's where it came from. Transformed into juicy, sweet apple. That is why we care for everything in life. Because it's all useful. It's where we learn. It's where we grow. It's the important part of mindfulness. We learn by being here, not rejecting it. It's important. And we learn from it. We're kind to it. We care for things in life. And for those people who, I'm going to go deeper in a moment about the bliss and enlightenment and stuff. But a lot of times that people keep making the same mistakes because we never learn, from. We just keep rejecting, pushing it away. And so that's one of the reasons why that we have to keep repeating the mistakes again and again and again, because we don't know how to dig in the dog shit of our life to create beautiful happiness, kindness, and wisdom. So if we start to do this, we find that this is, whatever's happening in our life, we can always care for it, learn from it. And it changes, again, as I said, the whole ball game of life. So, we use this as a meditation object, because some people ask me, said, well, I'm sick, I'm in pain, what should I do? I can't meditate. I can't be mindful. I want to escape somewhere, go someplace where the pain isn't. And we lose a great opportunity there. If that pain is right in front of you, it's the most important thing in the world. Don't try and get rid of it, care for it. And I've been using that to great effects, told a personal story, because we're just talking, when old friends meet, especially when we're our age, how are you going? How's your prostate, if you're a man? Well, that's what, we talk about health issues. But anyway, I am incredibly healthy. But I did have, some years ago, food poisoning. Because as a monk, we most of the time, this morning, because he was a good friend, he just offered me something I liked. And most of the time, we just don't know what we're eating. And because of that, sometimes we get tummy aches, stomach aches. In this case, food poisoning. In our tradition, it's called an occupational hazard. So this was full-on food poisoning. And I live in a cave over in the monastery where I'm spiritual dictator. And I was in my cave. Just, have you ever had food poisoning? It hurts like anything. Ah! Oh! Ah! I was in agony. And this is also the art of public speaking. Don't just speak in a monotone without any drama. Ah! At the very least, people wake up and stop texting on their phones in the younger audience. So I was in real big pain. And where our monastery is a long way from the nearest hospital or doctors. So I thought, should I go and call an ambulance and I'll be dead by the time they arrive? Well, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but not that far off. So I said, well, what do I teach other people to do? To be mindful, to be caring. So what you do, you're aware of that feeling, physical feeling, the pain. It's the most important thing in the world. Don't reject it and care for it. Because I've been doing this for a long time, the mindfulness allowed me to get feedback. You could actually feel if that pain was getting worse or better. It's the interaction of the mind and the body. I remembered an experiment which was done. I was also into the Psychic Research Society in Cambridge, where they didn't do it in public, but did a lecture about it. They put a guy under hypnosis, and they had a 4-inch nail on the end of a stick. And they hypnotized this fellow to believe that the nail was red hot. And they touched it on his skin. He screamed in pain. And I could understand and accept that. But what I was really surprised with was see a blister come up on his skin. That nail was incapable of creating a blister or burning anything. It was at room temperature. But because his mind believed it was red hot, his mind created that blister. It was the interaction of the mind on the physical body to create a burn. And that was one of the things which was really interesting in the interface between the mind and the body, and how that can be used for simple things like good health. So, looking at that pain and figuring out the interaction with the mind on that pain, and the kindness, the compassion, the opening the door of your heart to that feeling, caring for it rather than trying to cure it. That was the key. And every time I did that, the pain got a little bit less. A little bit less. It gave me some reinforcement. Positive reinforcement. I was going in the right direction. A little bit more pain gone. A little bit more pain. And it only took me 20 minutes. And it surprised even me that the pain had totally disappeared. No more cramps, no more agony. There was no more even tummy ache. I was perfectly healthy. And I thought, because I know enough about science, about these were bacteria, running riot in your intestines or colon, I forget where it was. How can that happen? And then I figured it out, that what was actually happening, because I was being kind and caring and meditating, I imagined all these little blobs like I'd seen in the science class before, with all these little tentacles coming out, and I imagined them all crossing their tentacles and meditating quietly in my intestines. Well, that's only the explanation, but it never came back, totally gone. And that's how mindfulness and kindness are very, very powerful. And that's why that my publishers put out there the book Kindfulness. Not just mindfulness, but adding that extra kindness there, caring, compassion, a core principle of so many spiritual traditions. And that works. I'm telling John just over lunch that I get feedback too, because you give all these talks out for free on the internet, on YouTube, and you get amazing feedback back. One of the nicest emails I've got was from a lady in Poland who had chronic arthritis and having to take very strong medication with bad side effects just to get through the day. And, I've seen people with arthritis bent, crooked. They can't straighten up. It's hurting like hell. And she wrote this email, "Thank you for your teachings. I don't need any more medications because the arthritis is totally gone." And the reason I tell that story is because I indulge. I get so much happiness knowing you've actually helped somebody. It works. Taking away a person's pain and giving them life back. It's amazing what that mindfulness with kindness can actually do to your own physical health. So, mindfulness and kindness. When you start doing that, start caring instead of running away, you find amazing things happen. When you're not running away and not doing business, you tend just to slow down, enjoy the moment. When I travel around the world, as in New York City, it's got a huge population, but not many human beings. All I ever see is human goings. That's why I was very impressed with you, your president today. I asked him what he's doing. He said, "I'm just being here for the next few days." But we go too fast. And this little anecdote experience, in the place where we live, remember when we sort of found that place and we sort of bought it? It had to be in the hills above the city. And the reason it had to be in the hills was tradition. Because holy people always live on top of mountains. It's tradition. You never see a holy man or holy woman living in a swamp. But there's one exception, I was told. Yoda. Apparently lives in a swamp. But that's not real life, that's fantasy. If you want to be a holy person, you have to keep your traditions and live on top of a mountain. So it's not a big mountain, it's a bit of a hill. But, here in the plains of Chicago would be a mountain. So there we were, building up there, creating a monastery, and it was about after 7 years of going up and down Kingsby Drive, which you can remember, the road where the monastery is, up and down in a car. And it was one morning, I forget exactly what I'd been doing. I asked my driver to let me out at the bottom of the hill I wanted to walk up. It's very hard, if you're a highly respected monk, to get any exercise. Because people say, "No, we will drive you. We need the good karma rather than you need your good health." You can appreciate that. That's very difficult. But anyway, I stood my ground and I got out of the car and said, "I am walking." It's a beautiful spring day and plenty of time. So I just walked up this hillside for probably the first time in 7 years. And what was strange was I could not recognize my surroundings. It was like going up that hillside for the very first time. And that was weird. How come I could not recognize this place after 7 years going up and down in a car? And it was so weird, I stopped. and stared. When I stopped and stared, I saw things which I had even missed while walking, and everything started looking more and more beautiful, delightful. And I thought, what's happening here? We use contemplation, have strange experience, don't run away from them, but try and understand what they're trying to teach you. And I went back to basic science. Your sight is light hitting the back of your eye on the retina. There's a chemical reaction there. Most people go so fast, like I was doing, looking through the window of a car. An image would hit the retina, and the chemical reaction wasn't finished before another image came up, and then another image, and another image. If any of you, my sort of age, developed your own photographs before the digital cameras, you notice you put the photographic paper, in the solution, and the image slowly emerges. If you take it out too quickly, it's not fully formed, and the colors aren't rich. And that was precisely what's happening in the back of your eye. Another image comes up, another image, so you don't really see much of what's there, and the colors are washed out. When you go slowly, you find that there's more time for that chemical reaction to finish. So you start to see more details. More details emerge out of life. And when you really stand perfectly still, only then does that chemical reaction have all the time it needs to fully form. You see more details than you ever have before, and what you see is gorgeous. The greens in the grass are more green than you've ever seen before. The little different greys and browns on the barks of the trees really stand out. Life becomes beautiful. William Blake, one of my favorite poets, 17th century UK mystic, said, to see a world in a grain of sand, a heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand, eternity in an hour. To see a world in a grain of sand, there's so much going on there. We pass it by too quickly. A heaven in a very small wild flower. It's beautiful. But my experience, which is unforgettable, and once I describe it to you, it will be unforgettable to you as well, was during one retreat I was teaching, really getting some great stillness and powerful mindfulness. I had to go to the toilet to do what we call a number 2. In America, yeah, same as America. So I made a big mistake. Is after I did the number 2 to look at the contents of the toilet bowl. Wow! Never in my whole life had I seen such a beautiful lump of shit. Now, you're missing something. It's all different shades of brown. It's not just one shade of brown. Have a look next time. And just, it's like some sort of painting, by Raphael or something. Just the different shades and the way they interact together. It was incredible. And just the way the little balls were stuck together like a Rodin sculpture. And even Michelangelo probably couldn't achieve so much. And there's always a little bit of mucus there, which it shined like a diamond in the water. And now, getting on to the aroma. Now, please excuse me, just modern sense, they're just so superficial. This is rich, earthy, natural. Spoke of just life itself generating, this beautiful early existence on earth, the slime of life from which all creatures emerged. It was fundamental. It spoke of essence. And I was getting so off on this. I don't know how long I was spending in the toilet cubicle going, wow, amazing. Whoa. And I have to be honest, the thought crossed my mind of taking it out to show my friends. But, as you know, that one of the things we train at is how to let go. If I hadn't had that training, I would never, ever be able to press that button. There was such a hard thing to do. But I did it. And the most beautiful piece of shit in the world went out of my life forever. Still feel sad, still miss it. I know you say, like, when you break up with someone, there's always many fish in the sea, but not that. The reason I tell that story, where was the beauty? It's not in the shit. It's in the mindfulness. Incredible deep mindfulness. You can see beauty in the most unexpected places. I could see it in the hillside. You can see it in the shit. You can see it in the beautiful old grandma who's way past the age when she could appear on the front cover of Playboy, but still is beautiful and gorgeous. Now this is where we start to get bliss from, an appreciation, a happiness in areas of life which you never expected to see beauty. This is where the happiness starts to begins. So you look at your mind and your body, old, fat, but beautiful. I'm really against self-improvement movements. What's wrong with you? Who said you need to be improved? And you buy into that. The guy went into the bookshop and he asked the person on the counter, can you please tell me where the self-help section is? And he said, if I told you, sir, it would defeat the purpose. Never ever buy a book on self-help. Write your own. So to tell you what I mean is, if ever you have a walk in a forest, please try and find the most beautiful tree, the one you like the most. And you'll find it's never the straight trees. It's never the perfect trees. The tree which you really admire the most, and which you'll go back to again and again, is the tree which is all crooked and twisted. The tree which has got so much damage on the bark. The tree which has got yellow leaves and brown leaves and leaves eaten by bugs, where many branches have been torn off by the storm, and in those holes that's where the birds and the animals nest. And you'll find that's your most favorite tree. In fact, you look in the trees in the forest, they're all damaged. Every one of them. There's not a perfect one. That is why, if you think that you're imperfect, if anyone comes up to you and says they're damaged goods, please tell them two things. First of all, you belong. You belong in the great forest of humanity. You're not excluded. In fact, you are probably one of the most beautiful trees in the forest, the more damaged you are. So if you've got a husband who's all twisted and bent, you are so lucky. If you've got a wife who's all damaged, she's beautiful. That changes this quest for what we think is perfection, which is so much bullshit in our world. You don't have to improve. This John, it's not fat. It's not fat. I looked. We practice so much kindness and compassion as monks. It's our life. Be kind, compassionate. So much compassion. Every year you're a monk dedicated to the spiritual life. Your heart gets bigger and bigger and bigger every year. After 43 years of being a monk, my heart expanded. It can't go any further because of the rib cage. So now it goes down and out. It's the only place it can find any space. This is not fat, this is a big heart. And if you don't believe me, as I said to your president today, he said, one of my favorite spiritual figures, all over the world, especially in the United States, the one who was a symbol of generosity and kindness and happiness. This guy was old when I was young, and he still looks exactly the same today. Santa Claus. In your shopping malls, have you ever seen a skinny Santa? No. They're always fat and happy and jolly and generous. So that was the icon I'm trying to live up to. And I always say, never trust a skinny monk. They've got a tiny heart. So anyway, it's a Buddhist tradition. You seen the fat Buddha? In the Chinese tradition, they always rub the tummy of the fat Buddha for good luck. And that happened to me once. I was standing at our temple in Perth, and this Chinese lady came in, she took one look at me and started rubbing my tummy. Oh, why not? It gives me a purpose in life. So anyway, so you can see happiness in amazing things. Now that has huge effects on you. Because when you have great joy in your life, you don't need to improve or to change. Life becomes so easy when you're having fun. And in fact, I forget who this philosopher was, but sometimes, I should have written it down, but it resonated with everything I understood about Buddhism, was if you want something more, if you want to improve, you can't enjoy what you already have. So if you want to improve your appearance, you're not really appreciating the appearance you have. If you want to improve the Theosophical Society, you can't enjoy the beautiful thing it is already. If you try to organize everything, I don't like organized religion. I like disorganized religion. When things aren't so organized, but they work, they're human. I do many funerals, and it's the disorganized funerals. When something goes wrong, that's the ones I like the most. They are so memorable. Like the big Chinese funeral, they put so many ornaments on the outside of the casket. When they lowered it into the grave, it got stuck halfway. That was so much fun. Or when, I don't know about the US, but in Australia, you can make your own coffins. You got the freedom to do that. They've got to be a certain size. But so this person died who was a whitewater rafter. So they decided to make him like a coffin, like a little boat with oars on the top. Trouble was they made it out of Jhana, which was hard wood, like mahogany, and incredibly heavy. That was the problem, too heavy. So when they put it on the little conveyor, It goes behind the screen goes forward and then it closes again. It was so heavy, the motor was really struggling to pull the conveyor. And so the screen opened up, but the coffin hadn't gone through when the screen closed. It was stuck halfway. And the wife, Jenny, she jumped on the conveyor belt to try and push it through. And her friend said, "You're trying to get rid of him that much?" And another friend said, "Just like this guy, I knew him when he was young. The first time he drove his car, he crashed it. The first day in his coffin, he crashed that one as well." Typical. And it was so much fun that people sent this fellow off with so much joy, just as he had wanted. It's wonderful when things go wrong. Recently, I was giving a meditation retreat over in Kuala Lumpur, and a couple of people came in for interviews. It was a young girl and a man, and she looked about 22, he looked about 30, and she did all the talking. Please excuse me for stereotyping, but this is my experience. When they came in together, she did all the talking, so I thought they were married. I can get into trouble, but that's my experience. So I thought they were married. So afterwards, I said, "Oh, is that your husband?" And they burst out laughing. They said, "No, that's my dad." And she was only 16. But you know that kids these days, girls, they're only 16, but they look in their early 20s. And he was 40, but he looked really young. They just laughed, but they never objected. They got so impressed because, ask you if you've got a daughter about 16, if she, is taken for a 20-year-old, she really likes that. And ask any guy who's 40 and you think they're 30, and they're really impressed too. So they reappeared 5 minutes later with a $100 donation. And written on there, "Please use part of that to get your spectacles checked." That really worked. So when things go wrong, they're wonderful. That's where you have a lot of fun in life. So don't be afraid of making mistakes. You're good enough. Care for yourself. Which means that even when you meditate, just let go. Be kind. You don't need to improve yourself or attain something. What do you want to attain? Haven't you got enough already? More burdens, more things to work for. The meaning of life. And this is the UK education system, you do this series of exams when you're 16 called O-levels. At that time, I like playing soccer. I spent heaps of time with your friends in the park or in the street kicking a ball around. And my parents, teachers said, no, don't waste time playing sport. Stay at home, study, do your homework. Because if you pass those exams, then you'll be happy, you'll be successful. So I took their advice. I trusted people. So I stopped playing soccer. I could have been a millionaire these days. All these sporting people, they do sport for a few years and then they can retire, billionaires. So I sacrificed all of that. And I did really well. I passed those exams. You know what happens when you pass an exam? You've got to do another one. I tell kids this, fail early in life. Then you don't have to do any more exams. You're free. So this one was A-levels, university entrance over in the UK at 18. More exams. And at that time, I wasn't chasing a football. I was chasing girls. So stop chasing girls, stop going out at night, stay at home, do your homework. And again, I believe people. So gullible. And I did really well in the A-levels and got to Cambridge. And when I went to Cambridge, Again, still more exams, not happiness yet. Listen, you get a degree from a great university like that, and you'll be happy. And at that time, I started getting suspicious. And I looked at other people who I knew, the ones who got their degrees. So you finished? No, wait. You can do a master's, a PhD. I know some people in their 60s, they still haven't left university, still doing more. You know, there's always another qualification you can do. So, those people who had left, what were they up to then? Had to go to work, saving up. They weren't happy yet. Save up, you didn't usually, in those days, to get a car, get some wheels, get around. And then, you know, you go out with somebody, and you say, now, when I find my partner in life, my soulmate, then I'll be happy. And when you actually do, find someone you can really connect with and you can trust and be with, are you happy yet? No. You've got to get a house to live in. More hard work, saving up. So you think, okay, when I get a house, then I'll be happy. By that time, many people have kids. And that puts off your happiness for another 20 years. So when his kids grow up and leave home, then I'll be happy. By that time, you're close to retirement. And so you say, okay, yeah, just a few more years at work, and when I retire, then I'll be happy. But then I noticed something. In Buddhist temples, Christian churches, many other mosques and places, you find that most of the congregation are old people. You know why? Because they go to church at that time of their life because they think, when I die, then I'll be happy. And there's something totally wrong there. Why have you got to wait till after you die before you become happy? So I decided, I've had enough of this and just learn to be happy now. How can you be happy now? There's so much to be done. No. Learn to be content with whatever you have. Whatever comes along. It doesn't mean you get lazy. I'm happy to work as well. Whatever life throws at you, you've got to sort of be promoted and be international. Be happy. Because freedom, one of the core principles of the founding of the United States of America. What is freedom? You used to go to teach in prisons. When I got really busy, I sent that duty off to another monk. And this monk, one day, he told me he went to the prison and they asked him, what's it like at a Buddhist monastery? What do you do? So he told us the schedule. He said, and he started off, we get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And at that, the prisoners were aghast. They were shocked. Even murderers don't get up that time. What did you do to have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning? But he said, no, it is optional. It's optional. You don't have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. You can always get up earlier. And they said, what do you do after you get up? Can you watch the TV? Well, no, we don't have TVs in Buddhist monasteries. I did actually open a cupboard. You've hidden a TV in that room. I found it. And sometimes people ask me, do you watch the TV? And I say, yeah, I do. But as a Buddhist monk, if you really want to enjoy a TV, watch the TV without turning it on. And then you'll see an image of your real self in the screen. Check it out. So anyway, so we don't have TV. We meditate in the morning. What about breakfast? Yeah, we do have a breakfast. These days, we're allowed to have a cereal in our mug, and that's it. And the mugs sometimes have a competition. How many like Weetabix can fit in a mug? And that's it. And the prisoners in Australia say, wow, in jail in Australia, you can get bacon and eggs, you can get pancakes, you can get fruit, you can get whatever you want. So not a monastery. So what do you do afterwards? They say, we work. You know that. We just work really hard. building, mixing concrete and stuff. And I remember the story that I was helping out. I love concrete. Just the smell of it, just messing around. It's a boy thing. So anytime there's a concrete being done, I'm really right in there, pushing wheelbarrows, mixing it up. So one day I was mixing it all up, and you get really dirty. And it's great getting dirty. And then I was going back to the hut to get showered, and this was a Sri Lankan woman came past. And high-class Sri Lankan woman, because she had so many bangles on her wrist. I couldn't believe how much jewelry she had on, coming to see a monastery. And it was so much that I heard her from a distance. I thought it was the ice cream truck. And when she came up to me, she said, I'm looking for Ajahn Brahm. Thinking quickly, I said, well, if you go to the hall over there, you know, the kitchen area, dining room, you'll probably find him there in 10 minutes. So I quickly got washed and changed, went over to the dining room, and no, she asked a few questions about meditation, what we were doing there. She said, I'm really impressed. You've got a wonderful monastery, but if you don't mind me criticizing one thing, on the way here, I saw one of your monks who was very badly dressed. Please say something to him. She never knew it was me. And so I said, because I can't lie as a monk. So I said, I will talk to him later, ma'am. I do talk to myself. You know, sometimes with meditation. Recently I was giving a seminar on dementia. This was, you know, with a doctor and the mindfulness part. And they described what dementia was, or Alzheimer's disease. When you can't forget the past, you cannot plan for the future, and you get socially disengaged. And I thought, my goodness, that's what I'm teaching other people to do. Let go of the past, let go of the future, and spend more time in solitude. So I'm the cause of dementia. So another excuse for this, I looked in a dictionary, you know, because people suffer from anorexia. And I looked in the dictionary and I found actually that's what this is. Have a check it out. The definition of anorexia is you look in the mirror and you think you're fat. That's me. So anyway, back to where was I? Oh yeah, the prison. So what do you do after working? You have your lunch. But in the lunch, the Buddhist monks in the monastery eat out of one bowl. Everything goes into the one bowl. If you have a soup, dessert, curries, potatoes, everything goes in the same bowl. And I was telling John earlier about that once, actually not that long ago, on my spaghetti, there was strawberry ice cream. Why are you going, ugh, for? How many of you ever had strawberry ice cream on your spaghetti? You don't know what you're talking about. Well, actually, it is disgusting. When we told the prisoners, say, look, even in solitary confinement, they give you a tray. You know, there's ice cream on here, sweets on there, and curries on somewhere else. Not in monastery. That's disgusting. So what do you do after lunch? Can you play sport or something? I said, no, we meditate. Why didn't you play sport? Good for exercise. If Buddhists played sport, it have to be played on Buddhist principles. Say you had a football, NFL. If it's a Buddhist team, the first principle will be, let go. So, if the other team wanted the ball, here. And the other will be compassion, kindness. You don't want to score a goal, a touchdown. That really upsets the other team. So, if it was a Buddhist football team, they'd always lose on purpose. That's why we don't play sport. And if the Chicago Cubs keep on losing, you know, because there's too many Buddhists in the team. Should I go there? Maybe not. But, so there's lots of Sri Lankans here. Please don't put any Buddhists on your Sri Lankan cricket team. Real Buddhists, they're too kind. Who wants to actually win a cup? Other people get disappointed. It's not compassionate. So, anyway, where are we going? Yeah, the prison, yeah. So, we meditate in the afternoon. Maybe do some study. What about dinner? Dinner? We finish our meal at midday. We don't have dinner. I had my lunch today. Now I starve until tomorrow morning. That's good. Just get it over all in one day. Just one feed a day. You wives, don't keep feeding your husbands. It's too much work, too much washing up, cooking. One feed a day, it's enough. Get it all done in one go. You have your breakfast, and you have your pancakes or your grits or your cereal, and then your main course for lunch and the dinner. Put it all in one go. It's efficiency. People are time poor these days. They haven't got enough time. So just eat one big meal a day, and then you get so much more time. Are you convinced? No. So anyway, so we don't have any dinner. That's disgusting too. So, and what about in the evening? Can you sort of play cards or something? No, of course we can't. Because in the evening we meditate. And in this story, they actually asked the monk, don't you get tired of meditating? He said, yes. What time do you go to bed? Bed? You know, I'm indulging here. You've given me a bed. Where I live, I sleep on the floor. The reason I sleep on the floor, because you don't have to worry about falling off. Sometimes, you know, you roll. When you sleep on the floor, you can roll anywhere. And you've got more space. It's a bigger bed to sleep on. It's also, you don't have to get all this furniture in your house. A big bed, you have to clean underneath it. You just roll out a mat and you sleep on that. It's really good. So anyway, so at the end of that story, these prisoners, one of them totally forgot where they were. They had so much sympathy for this monk they got to respect and like, that one of them blurted out, this is 100% true, "That's terrible where you live. Why don't you come in here and stay with us instead?" He was invited into, and the prisoners had a point. You know, you lived in that monastery. It's much more comfortable in a prison in Australia than in Bodhinyana Monastery. That's true. So why is it that there's a waiting list of people trying to join my monastery, but there's a waiting list of people trying to escape from jail, trying to leave? Why? What's the difference between freedom and being in prison? And this is where you had the insight that freedom, or rather prison, the opposite of freedom, prison is any place you don't want to be. It doesn't matter how painful or austere it is. If you don't want to be there, it's a prison. So how many prisons do you make in your life? You're in a relationship. You're not happy. You want out. Your relationship is like a prison for you. You're in a job. You really don't like that as well. Going to the office, you hate that. That's another prison for you. You're in a body which is sick and you want to get cured. It's another prison for you. You're old and you just want to be young again. It's another prison. Any place you don't want to be. You're in a talk like this and say, when's he going to stop? That's another prison. And the only way to escape the prisons of life and know what freedom is, don't change your partner. You change one and get another, you find it's all the same. Different chassis, same engine. Change your job. Why do you think they pay you? Your salary is a bribe to do something you'd rather not do. If you enjoy your job, don't tell your boss. They'll lower your salary. So instead, be happy to do what you need to do. Then you find freedom. You're sick? What's wrong with being sick? Is there anyone in this room who's never been sick in their life? If there was, you'd be sent to the university hospital straight away to have tests. Why is this person never sick? You'd be weird. There'd be something wrong with you, not normal, that you never get sick. Getting sick is normal. Everyone gets sick. So why on earth, when you go to see your doctor, do you say, there's something wrong with me, I'm sick again? That is not accurate. That is not truth. The next time you go to see your doctor, please tell that doctor, doctor, there's something right with me, I'm sick again. Stop stigmatizing sickness. So, if you're content to be where you are, then you have freedom. And you realize there's not one tree in the forest which is straight. You change your whole attitude towards perfection. You're at peace with life. You're free. Freedom is being happy where you are. And as you stop striving to change things, you stop struggling so much. You're like the person who walks up the hillside slowly. You're not trying to get somewhere. You're learning how to be here. And you're realizing just how beautiful your hillside really is. How beautiful your wife is, your husband, your monk, your shit. That is a good description of enlightenment. Thank you. And now, comments, questions, and... Okay, go for it.
Hello.
Hello. That's a simple question. Now the next one.
The question being, I understand and really connect with all the theory and how to practice, but when you're struggling to overcome like a challenge, for example, work, and how frustrating your job might be and how you dislike it and how that becomes a prison, how do you keep combating that for yourself to feel free in that situation?
Feel free. Remember, it's not the difficulty of the job, but it's actually how you react to it. That creates the difficulty. Just it wasn't the agony in my guts which was the problem. It's my reaction to it. That causes the main problems in life. Overreaction, negativity, looking at something, with that fault-finding mind. This isn't good enough. I should be treated better. I am actually 65 now. I should be retired by now. John shouldn't be exploiting me like this. But no, I'm happy to do this. Already it started just out there. Just people want to take a photograph of me. Why do you want to take a photograph of me? I'm fat and old. Signing books. It's a big mistake writing a book. Now I have to sign them. And sometimes, not here, but Indonesia, in Sri Lanka, I did 2,000 books one evening. A whole line of people. Signing books, photograph, signing books, photograph, signing books, photograph. And after about an hour of that, I said, this is not what I signed up for, being a monk. And I realized I was creating my suffering. So I said, no, I'm going to be happy to be here. People just got so much fun, so much joy. They were being treated as important. So yes, I'll sign your book for you. And I will smile until my jaw aches. Actually, I do exercises every morning. I always do 10 push-ups every morning. Exercise. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Smiley muscles, they're really important to exercise. But that's actually how you do it. You put fun and joy into difficult situations. And you find it's amazing just how the whole thing changes, even at your work. Play. Make jokes. Dress up in a different way. Red Nose Day. Guys wear pink when it's for breast cancer or whatever. Do that. And you'll find a little bit of fun and joy, which you add into the workplace. Changes everything and improves productivity and profits. It's not a one or the other. If you can do that in your work, it's amazing just how the cooperation, innovation about getting more stuff done with collaboration, how that works. I also teach at business schools, companies. I was at Google yesterday in Manhattan. So, I'm not a lightweight. I know what I'm talking about. And it works. Yeah.
It's not a serious question.
Great.
What football team did you support as a kid?
I supported, because my father took me to Fulham, and they always kept losing. It was so much suffering. That's one of the reasons I became a monk. If your team wins, it's just a waste of time. Yeah, what's your team? Spurs. Oh, they would do much better. Yeah, I know. But it's absolutely foolish. I mean, how many football teams, how many, American football teams are there in the National NFL League? 30? 32, okay. 32 teams. How many teams and their supporters are happy at the end of the year? Only one. And if you come second, that is the worst. So close, you don't get it. So you've got a 31-to-1 chance of being miserable. It's stupid. But people really get into it and buy into that.
There's a question from someone from downstairs. The question is, once you experience jhana, how can you use it to contemplate the three characteristics to arrive at insight?
Okay, this is what I'm supposed to be talking about. But okay. Now, what happens when you're really still, you get so much happiness that you don't need to do anything, which means you get more still. Remember, stillness is the opposite of doing and striving. You don't need anything. You're just so content, so happy, so peaceful that things start to disappear. If you close your eyes, you can see the inside of your eyelids, and after a few seconds, you can't see your eyelids anymore. The sense of sight turns off. Your brain is wired to notice things which change. The sound of the aircon. Now you can hear it. In a few seconds, you won't hear it anymore. Because it's constant, it vanishes. So when you're meditating, you try and have a reasonably quiet place, no sudden sounds, which means the sense of sound turns off. Close your eyes, can't see anything. You don't take a snack during the meditation, which means taste and smell disappears. We usually say that if anyone has digestive problems and passes wind, please sit in the back so only the wall can smell you. Never sit in the front, because if you sit in the front, so many rows behind you will have to suffer. So now in any meditation retreat, you always know why people sit in the back. because they got digestive problems. But anyway, so when the smell disappears, turns off, body, that's very hard to actually turn the sense of physical touch off. There's always something which is itching, you're rubbing your nose, you're scratching your hair, you're scratching your nose. I'm not only describing, just moving your hair, your brow. I'm just describing what I'm seeing. Your eye again. It's so difficult to allow the body to vanish. This is why we do this meditation, until everything vanishes. And when those 5 senses vanish, what's left is, first of all, this beautiful light in the mind. We call that nimitta. It's a special word. And when the nimitta comes up, either your 5 senses are so calmed down, it's like you can hear maybe, but it's at a distance, 1,000 miles away it feels. The body is so happy it just vanishes. So what you really have is the vanishing of the 5 senses. And in its place, you see this beautiful light, which is how people experience the mind. The 6th sense, the mind. Aristotle always had 6 senses. Somehow along the line, we lost one of our senses. We lost our mind, which is one of the reasons for the chaos of our modern world. It doesn't exist anymore. It's just a byproduct of the brain. And I'm very passionate fighting, as a scientist, against that stupidity. Love, kindness, compassion, amazing acts of generosity and sacrifice. You can't say that's a byproduct of the brain. That's so demeaning. But anyway, that's the 6th sense. 5 senses vanish, and that 6th sense appears beautiful, incredibly beautiful. Marketing now. When I first experienced these deep states of meditation, I was still a student, had a girlfriend, having good sex with her. I need to say this, because I went into a meditation retreat and the bliss was better than sex. Are you interested? And it was incredible. And my first reaction was, why hadn't anyone told me about this before? And so this is actually the power of that happiness. It is mindfulness, it's bliss, real ecstasy. Not the pills, not the chemicals, but the real stuff. Beautiful, powerful, superpower mindfulness. So you can see if you can see the beauty in a piece of, in the toilet bowl, imagine what you see with this beautiful mind. And that solidifies. And you go deeply into it. And these are the jhana states. Deep states of absorption of bliss, of disappearance. 5 states, 5 senses vanishing. When you come out again afterwards, not during that state because you're too still to do anything. When you come out afterwards, it leaves an indelible impression. What the heck was that? And the reason why you understand things like the Buddhist 3 characteristics of existence, why is it so much bliss and happiness? Because it becomes obvious, because these 5 senses are such a burden, such a heaviness. If you don't see the nimitta now, every one of you will experience that nimitta when you die, going towards the light. The reason is because when you die, you are compelled to let go of your 5 senses. You're dead. And you go towards this light. And people who survive, they come back again. And that's what they say, beautiful light. And if you really get into that light, it's like bliss. It's ecstasy, pure love. And check out people who come back and describe that. That's exactly what you experience when you're still alive, in deep meditation. You learn, as many people do who have those near-death experiences, not to be afraid of death. Why would you be? It's an incredible, wonderful release. You're free of this heavy burden of a body. One of the most wonderful little examples of that was a BBC documentary of this woman who was always in hospital, this sickness, that sickness, and she died on the operating table. And she floated out of her body and met this spirit on the other side. And this spirit said, "Terribly sorry, ma'am, but you have to go back. It's not your time." And she said, "No way. I am not going back. But you have to. I will not." And have this really hot argument on the spiritual plane, or whatever you call it. And it was only ended because she refused. She's got rights. And this big confrontation, it was only ended when she said, she described it on this documentary on BBC in England, when this spirit somehow or other grabbed hold of her and threw her in her body, and she came alive again. And when she was interviewed, this is when her face really screwed up. I've never seen someone so angry when she described, "When I die next time, when I really die, the first thing I do, I'll find that guy. And what I'll do to him, I can't repeat on TV." She was so angry. And that was a great description of just, how? Just the bliss of letting go of this body. It's just so wonderful, so freeing. So if you experience that, number one, you experience just, the dukkha, the suffering of having a physical body. So you're never, ever afraid of death. Just like your previous, not one, two, the 43rd said, "Bring it on." That was George W. Bush, I think. Is that correct? Bring it on. That's what he's remembered for. So anyway, the fear of death is gone. And even more powerful is it's a simile of the tadpole and the frog. Tadpole can't understand water, no more than a fish can. How can you understand water when you're born in water, lived all your life in water? But the difference between a tadpole and a fish is that one day the tadpole grows arms and legs. It becomes a frog. It doesn't know what it's doing. One day it jumps out of the lake to an experience totally different than you've ever had before. That's the jhanas. Totally different. And things are missing there which have never been missed before. That's the anicca, the impermanence. It doesn't mean impermanence, it means something there has totally vanished, and it's not supposed to vanish. And now you understand what that is. A fish can't understand water when it's always there. But once it disappears, it has the opportunity to know that weird stuff which is no longer there. That's how a frog can understand water. That's how human beings can understand the nature of the body and the five senses. But more importantly, in those deep meditations, something else vanishes. Your will. Do you know what your will is? How can you? No more than a fish can understand what water is. It's always there. Sometimes you don't use it, but it's always there for you. In the deep meditation, it vanishes. It's just not there. That is why it's so still. And that is why the second of these deep meditations is so incredibly blissful. Samadhija, piti sukhang. The bliss born of absolute stillness. Your will has vanished. Thank goodness. Many people come to any spiritual path because they don't want to let go of will. Will is your deepest attachment. You're all control freaks. Some big ones, some small ones. There's some area we always want, that's ours. That's called attachment. But in direct experience, you understand what this will is. And it's much better without it. It sucks. We try to increase our choice. But how many people go to supermarkets, shopping malls, and there's too much choice? Oh my goodness, which one should I choose? There was a a refugee came to Australia recently, and he went to the supermarket for the first time, couldn't believe it. Had instant milk powder. All you need to do is add hot water and you get milk. He said, wow, in the old country, we had to catch a cow. put it in the teeth, that's the only way we got milk. These modern people are so good, just so convenient, just add hot water, you get milk. And he went to another place, instant mashed potato. Just add hot water, you get mashed potatoes. Oh, in the old country, we had to till the field, plant the potato seeds, harvest them, then wash them, boil them, then smash the hell out of them to get mashed potatoes. So much work. In the West, it's so... But what really blew his mind, he went to another aisle in the supermarket and saw baby powder. In the old country. Baby powder joke. But anyhow, that's so we don't understand these things until they vanish. Then we understand. You don't know what you've got until it's gone. Is that Joni Mitchell? Don't take paradise, put up a parking lot. It's my upbringing. So that's actually how we know something when it's vanished. And then it changes our whole life. So many people want to wisen up their will, thinking if you can learn all these wonderful techniques, then you don't get into trouble anymore. Wasting time. Just let go of the will. You're totally out of control. For the last hour and 2 or 2 hours, you've been totally brainwashed. I admit it. That's what I'm doing to you. You go on.
Can you please say something about the connection of compassion in developing emptiness?
Yeah. Compassion is a form of letting go. Now, what compassion isn't, if you go and visit, say, your loved one in hospital and say, I hope you get better, that is not compassion. That is really putting a lot more stress on your loved one to get better. So if you really have compassion, it's called opening the door of your heart. Darling, you can get better if you want, but you don't have to. I still love you and care for you. Just relax. All outcomes I will respect. Sometimes when people send me to the airport, they said, I hope you have a good flight. And I would say, have a good flight, Ajahn Brahm. I said, no, I will not be controlled by you. We think that's compassion, and it actually puts a lot of pressure on people. There was, I just think you may have, John knows him, Kitty Saro. He got really, really sick, sent to a big monastery in England to try and get better. He was sick for years. He's a really good friend. He was from Tennessee. He was a Rhodes Scholar. He's a really good friend, very well loved. And what changed him around, this monk went up to his room in the attic of this monastery and said to him, I've come up here on behalf of everybody who loves you, is your friend, supports you, to give you permission to die. You don't have to get better. And at that point, apparently, he wept. And from that time, he started to recover. The stress of trying to improve his health was the main cause of his sickness. You don't have to get better. You can die if you want. That is compassion. Letting things be instead of controlling. Now, if you understand that, you understand opening the door of your heart to this moment, no matter what it is. Caring for it, not curing it. And it's a caring for it, not curing it, which takes away the stress and often gives a huge recovery. We try so hard to get better, it makes us sick. That's compassion. And with compassion, with letting go, things vanish. When they vanish, that's called emptiness. You disappear, nothing left. Freedom.
We humans all seek happiness all the time. But isn't there, it gets intertwined with craving, isn't it? So
Exactly.
So how do you?
So when you want something more, you cannot appreciate what you already have. You can't enjoy it. So what more do you want? Sometimes a wanting more is endless. There comes a time, this is good enough. You relax and you find contentment. Go down to your personal experience, not theory. When, each one of you, when is the most happiest moment of your life so far? When was it? By happiness, I mean you were with somebody, you didn't want to be with anyone else in the whole world but the person who you were with. You didn't want anything. You weren't searching, you weren't so worried about anything. Each one of us has these very deep moments of contentment in our life, which we forget their importance. We don't want anything. That gives you a taste of freedom. The craving, the wanting, means you are not happy with what you have. It's a story of Mexican fishermen. There was a business professor from a prestigious business school in the US, was on vacation in the Caribbean, and he saw this fisherman come in with the catch early in the morning, and he decided to have a conversation. He said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I've been out since the early morning. I caught enough fish for the day. Now I'm going to go home and have lunch with my wife. I'm going to have a siesta after lunch, and then I'll be home when my kids come back from school, help with some homework, play with my kids, have some time with them. And in the evening, I'll go to the canteen to my friends, play a bit of guitar, just have a little bit of tequila, not get drunk. Now, life is good." And the professor said, "That is a waste of an asset. Your boat is standing idle for most of the day. Don't be so lazy. Yeah, have lunch with your wife, but go out in the afternoon to catch more fish. You'll catch twice as many fish. And with the extra profit, you'll soon be able to buy a bigger boat with some crew. With that bigger boat and crew, you'll be able to catch even more fish. And that way, you'll be able to buy a second boat. Soon you'll have a whole fleet of boats. And then you can move your business to, say, New York. And there you can make yourself the CEO. You can do an IPO. And as the major shareholder, you can award yourself special options, do a company buyback. And then after a while, you'll be a multi-millionaire. That's how it's done. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I think that sounds right. And the Mexican fisherman was listening so carefully to all of this, and then asked the next question. Once I've got many millions of dollars, then what will I do? And the professor hadn't gotten that far in his business plan. I said, well, once you're a multimillionaire, you can retire. You can retire to a beautiful, idyllic fishing village like this. Buy yourself a little boat just to go out for fun in the morning. You'll be able to spend lunch with your wife every day, have a nice rest in the afternoon, be there for your kids every day, and be able to have the freedom and no stress to go and enjoy yourself in the evening." But I do that already, senor. Rich people aspire to live like poor ones. To have time and freedom. Not much. How much do you need to live? We work so hard to pay off the health insurance when we get sick because we work so hard. I am bad for the economy, by the way.
The influence of Ajahn Chah has been amazing. And this is the first opportunity I've had to personally ask someone who trained under him, what was the most memorable incident that you can share with us that would kind of sum up why he was the influence he was for you?
Oh, okay. I have shared this story. This is one of the deepest stories. Absolutely true. Ajahn Chah, when he gave a talk, was often incredibly boring. You'd agree, because he went on for hours and hours and hours. But it was interesting, because every now and again he'd say something really important, and it was worth it. It was like sort of mining gold. You had to get rid of all the slurry first of all. So the teachings which you hear have all been sort of filtered. I remember many, many times, hours and hours and hours he would teach. But every now and again, he would give something which was so inspiring. And that inspiration just lifted you up so high that that's where you get your best meditation from, based on inspiration. And there was one time, you remember when we had built a sauna for him. We built that sauna, and by the way, the Swedes never invented saunas. The saunas were in the ancient texts in all monasteries in the time of the Buddha. Only we just don't get the patent for things. So, we built a sauna for him. It was half like looking after your teacher, but half selfishness, because we knew that he would come and give a talk before his sauna. Were you in? You were there then, were you? Yeah, okay. So he just given an amazing talk, and I was so inspired. Instead of doing your duties to your teacher by going to help him with the sauna, I decided, this is too good inspiration to miss. I went behind the back of the sala, the hall, and just sat down for 2 hours, blissing my head out. So it's so easy to meditate when you're inspired. You just get this free joy. Wow. So, after I came out of meditation, my first thought was of gratitude. So I decided to go to the sauna to see if I could do any assistance. Too late, because on the path to the sauna, it was only a small path, I saw Ajahn Chah come in the opposite direction with 2 Thai people, his drivers, and we were going to pass. And so, it was like high noon. The stupid disciple and the great master coming together. And there's no way out. And he stopped. And he saw, just when you have a good meditation, the body language is really obvious. He saw I was really, very, very clear. And he read my mind. And I admit this because you could feel him inside. I don't know how else to explain it. And for once, I was happy he could read my mind. Most times you're really embarrassed. So come in. I'm happy about this. And so weird feeling, you could feel, you knew he was reading your mind. And then he looked at me. And not with anger or control, but with seriousness, fierceness. And he said, Brahma Wangso, that's the full name. Brahma Wangso. Why? Why? There's this unconventional, but really deep, the deepest question, why? And I looked at him and said, I don't know. I was stupid. All these degrees from great universities, they were totally, out-degreed by just this monk who'd only done 4 years of school. When it came to wisdom, so Cambridge never cut it. Honestly, you felt so diminished and by the enormous wisdom of this man. That's why I lost all my faith in academia. I knew sort of Nobel laureates, and they were never as wise and together as this Ajahn Chah fellow. So anyway, that he was such a compassionate guy. I felt so stupid, and he just laughed. He never criticized, to me anyway, he just always laughed. Anytime a Western monk did anything stupid, he would tell it to the Thai people afterwards, just for humor. One of the first things I remembered of him, that was very poor when we first went there, and if you wanted anything like toothpaste or soap, you actually had to go to him and had a big, mornam, the water jars, and he'd just put everything in there. And if you wanted some soap, he'd just go around in there and just see if there was some. If there wasn't, he said, sorry, got none. So I had to ask in Thai for soap, which is sabu. I said, Sapo. Sapo means pineapple. Very close. And so he looked at me, Sapo, what do you want pineapple for? So, to wash. And he made so much happiness out of that for the next few days. Every visitor said, in England, they wash with pineapples. They're so more advanced than we are in Thailand. Well, I certainly learnt that word after that. So he never scolded you, but always used humour. And then, sort of this time he laughed, but then he got serious again. He said, Brahma Wangso, I will tell you the answer to the question why. And that was the moment. I mean, this monk, personal, giving the answer of deepest teaching, and I was really all ears and excited. And the reason he asked that question, because he got in my mind, I thought I was ready to be enlightened, had enough peace and stillness, but wasn't too stupid. And then he said, the answer to the question why. Are you interested? Have we got time? The answer to the question why is, there's nothing. There's nothing. And then he looked at me with kindness and seriousness. Do you understand? And I said, yes. He said, no, you don't. And he walked off. You felt so tiny, but he gave you an amazing sort of teaching, which you never forget. The answer to the question why is nothing. It's nothing. So what are you trying to find? It's nothing. As I mentioned earlier, I saw this on a t-shirt first time. Nobody is perfect. I am a nobody, therefore I must be perfect. That's a great expression of enlightenment. If you're a somebody, you're faulty. If you're a nobody, you're perfect. There's nothing. Oh, freedom at last. So that was one of the memorable experiences, because it was personal. Do you understand that, by the way? No, you don't.
My sister and I were speaking in the car as we were coming over here. The both of us, during meditation, kind of get to a cul-de-sac of sorts. And I wonder if I can ask you a personal question.
Yeah. It's not personal, there's no one there.
Right,
anyway.
Right. In practicing either loving kindness meditation or breath meditation, we both kind of get to a place where we get the piti sukha is arising, the joy and the bliss is coming up, and it feels like my face is going to break and I'm full of helium or something.
Right.
And it feels fantastic, and I can sit for sometimes 2 hours.
Yeah.
But I feel like, though it is wonderful and peaceful, it doesn't go anywhere else sometimes, right? Or ever. And then also during breath meditation, we both had experiences where the nimitta arises and it's drawing us in, and it feels like it's showering us, and it's wonderful, but at the same time, it's a bit of a dud, I guess, in that it doesn't. We're not there for an hour or two to manifest into full blown stillness or whatever.
Okay.
And
one of the reasons why it doesn't blossom into stillness is because you want it to. In the deepest meditations, there's always a tiny bit of wanting left. And the only way to get past that is just to imagine it's none of your business. Just to totally let go. This is not my problem. So don't look at meditation as an achievement. It is a letting go, a disappearance. And whenever there is a sense of self, there's always some attachment there. That's just what the self does. It controls, it does stuff. It was René Descartes who said the French philosopher, who said, to be is to do. Sartre turned it around. To do is to be. And it was a great American philosopher, Frank Sinatra, who said, do, be, do, be, do. And I saw that with my own eyes, written on the walls as graffiti of the philosophy department at Cambridge. That's where I got that from. It was amazing. That's really nice graffiti. But whenever there's a sense of self there, you'll always do stuff. You can't help it. So they have this wonderful phrase, it's in the Visuddhimagga, the path is, but no traveller on it is seen. You have to disappear and vanish. And I said this last night at Tibet House in Manhattan, because people often ask me, well, Ajahn Brahm, can you achieve those jhanas? Can I do it? Now, there is a rule which says we're not supposed to say about these attainments, but I get so frustrated with that rule. And, so I found this amazing loophole. But I also have to be honest with you. And I tell you, and I've said many people, please don't be disappointed, but Ajahn Brahm can't enter jhanas. I can't do it. I can't. Are you disappointed in me? Am I a fake? Am I a hypocrite? I have to vanish, first of all, until there's no Ajahn Brahm left. And that's when those jhanas occur. You can't do the jhanas. It's what happens when you let go. It's a natural phenomena. If you try and attain these things, you'll never ever be able to attain them. So many people have experienced the same. You try, and you get nowhere. And then you give up. And then it happens. You stop, I can't do this now because it's too long. The donkey and the carrot simile. You can't keep chasing the carrot. Did I do that already? Yeah, I did, yeah. You can't chase the carrot. I live in the present moment, so I'm encouraging my own dementia. So you can't attain these things. You can't chase them. When you stop chasing things, the carrot comes towards you. Oh, this is one of Ajahn Chah's similes. It was I was deciding whether to say about the personal one, there's nothing, or the other one, which was so amazing. When I first heard it, I could not understand it at all. Do you remember that when he said that his monastery was a mango orchard? It was the first year, and you were there at the time. It was a mango orchard with all the mango trees planted by the Buddha. And now they're all sweet and juicy, but you can't get those mangoes by climbing up the tree, by throwing sticks up or shaking the tree. They will never fall that way. Only one way to get those mangoes to fall, and that is to sit perfectly still underneath a mango tree, perfectly still, and open up your hand and the mango will fall. That is such a beautiful simile. You sit perfectly still, not wanting anything, not wanting the jhanas, you disappearing, and then compassion, opening up your heart, and then those experiences fall into you. Most of the time, totally unexpected. They just happen when you disappear. That's why I say it's a loophole. Ajahn Brahm vanishes. I'm not there. My sense of self is gone. And that is when the jhanas happen. The path is, but no traveller on it is seen. You can't travel it. You can't do it. You vanish. That's why you never think of it as an attainment. I didn't do it. I'm not responsible. Don't blame me. Does that answer the question? It's a good question because it shows that so many people, it's open for you. It can be done when you stop doing stuff. People achieve those things. They experience them. Some of the most unexpected people. It's there for you. But you have to understand how it works. you vanish and disappear. Stop controlling, stop doing stuff. And then it all happens.